Hey class, this is your teacher, Alana. I want to let you know that you're all doing a wonderful job and to hang in there. I know that midterms are due soon, so you might be getting a little nervous, but you're all doing a great job, and I'm really impressed by all the discussions that I'm seeing on discussion board. I do want to say a few things in response to the responses on the fat thin module, just because this is something I happen to study a lot. I've written an article on the stigma associated with fatness, contrasting it against the stigma associated with women's body hair, and I'll post that as one of the article options under the extra credit readings in case anyone's interested in pursuing this topic further. But in a lot of the comments, I saw people debating with themselves, with classmates, etc., about when it's okay for people to be fat and when it's not okay for people to be fat, and basically saying, well, I guess if they're healthy, it's okay, but otherwise, they should really be educating themselves and eating better and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and feeling conflicted about the Fat Camp video and whether people who are obese should be celebrating their body as it is. So I want to bring your attention to the issues of the concept of when it's okay for somebody to be in the body that they're in, and also the concept of what they should be eating, whether they should be allowed to feel okay in their body, as it relates to the readings we've been doing on Parsons' sick role, and also the sociological concept of stigma more generally. And I bring this up because there seems to be sort of a misunderstanding coming through that I hoped the reading, especially about the media framing of obesity, would address, which is this conflation between thinness and moral worth or goodness, and the contingent conflation between fatness and badness, and a sense that fat people deserve to be shamed and deserve to be embarrassed and don't deserve happiness. So there's a concept by a person named Halse, Halse, called biocitizenship that presents this logic as it underlies a lot of discussions about obesity. And she calls it biocitizenship, this notion that your citizenship in society, your worth as a member of society, is conditional upon your body projects and also your genetics and how that affects the way that you are able to be in your body and the way that your body looks, and that people with certain bodies are somehow fuller citizens in our society than other people in other bodies. So obviously this has grave implications for disabled people, but also for obese people who are treated as lesser than fully human within our society. So, as I explain in my article, that's optional for you to read, the stigma associated with fatness is kind of complicated because there are some people who are very much choosing to be fat and embracing the body positive movement on the basis of free choice. And that, you don't get to tell me what to do in my body. This is my body. What's it to you? I'm going to embrace my body as it is. How dare you tell me I shouldn't? And that's legit in its own way. Because, is it anybody else's business? And is this concern over fat people's health really about their health, when basically this discourse is pushing them to pursue weight loss strategies that are oftentimes extremely unhealthy and actually deteriorate the person's health further? And yet, as long as they're skinny, they would get a pat on the back, even if that skinniness is masking a lot of health complications that arose through the dieting. and also for people who are so concerned about the health of fat people. Are you going up in the face of everyone who looks suspiciously skinny and interrogating whether they are on an unhealthy diet, whether they're anorexic, whether they're bulimic, whether they chain smoke in order to suppress their appetite? Are you going up in the face of everybody who looks suspiciously fit and interrogating whether they have a special form of bulimia where people purge calories by exercising too much and is especially prevalent among men and muscle builders? I don't think you are. So why are you so concerned, allegedly, about the health of fat people? And one could argue that it's not actually about health. It's about monitoring people's appearance in society, and especially because so many of us, I'm including myself in this, sacrifice a lot of indulgent cravings in order to have a particular type of thin, fit body. And so the notion that we've sacrificed so much in order to conform to this norm and thus be good, it's unfair for other people to just do what they want and have no consequences. And that is really threatening to our sense of fairness and what you're supposed to do. And so somehow that kind of comes out in this shaming, policing, stigmatizing type of discourse and interaction towards the obese. So that's one of the forms of stigma, is that it's something that people have chosen, and thus victim blaming is justified because it's a chosen stigma, what Irving Goffman would call a mutable stigma, changeable. But as I had hoped the readings would explain to you, sometimes fatness is an immutable stigma, unchangeable, something that is outside of the individual's control, whether that's because of genetics, whether that's because of socioeconomic factors that situate them within a food desert where they don't have any access to healthy food options, whether that's because in poverty they have to work 2 jobs and live in an unsafe neighborhood and don't have any possible way to exercise in their day, both because of an issue of energy resources, but also just opportunity resources. Not only can they not access a gym in the maybe 1 spare hour that they could squeeze in their day, but they also can't go running because they live in an unsafe neighborhood, which is oftentimes the case for impoverished people. So again, you have to look at whether it's actually within people's control to lose weight. And the point of sociology is to get you thinking about structures that surround us and that really shape our lives and our experiences of ourselves in society. So that's why I really want to bring your attention to the socioeconomic factors at play here and how that overlies with racial inequalities, because oftentimes the lower socioeconomic brackets are disproportionately populated by people who are not white. So white people have more access to money and more access to the lifestyle that is conducive towards being thin. But again, there's also a genetic factor. There's also a factor of cultural norms being different and ideals of beauty being different across different races, and us projecting a very white ideal of beauty for women that is associated with thinness onto other races, and whether that is okay to be doing or not. And there's also the issue of health being extremely subjective, and just because we're telling ourselves that thinness is healthy and that healthy is good and that everyone should be healthy and that everybody has a duty to society to be healthy, I would encourage you to critically interrogate what is healthy, because there are a whole lot of different diet plans out there. Is somebody on the keto diet healthy? Or somebody on the Atkins diet? Or on the Mediterranean diet? Or the Whole30 diet? Or the Paleo diet? Because these are all very different diets that in lots of ways are contradictory to one another. So what is healthy? Is it really just about doing whatever you need to do to lose weight and to be thin, and actually not about what you're putting into your body? Because if so, that's not about health. That's about the end result of thinness. And what is it that we're valuing here? And what is it that we're judging people based on their ability to approximate? So obviously, another way that fatness can be an immutable stigma is because of disability and chronic illness. People with debilitating depression, for example, cannot exercise. They do not have the energy or the motivation. They barely are able to muster the will to live. They're not going to hop on an exercise bike. They can't. They're ill. It's not their fault. Similarly, people with chronic pain issues or chronic fatigue issues, or of course, people with physical disabilities. There are lots of reasons why some people are physically unable to exercise and thus pack on more weight. Does that mean that they're bad? Does that mean that they're less worthy as human beings? Does that mean that they shouldn't be celebrating their body as it is and thus taking advantage of things like the fat camp and the body positivity movement? Do they not deserve happiness because they're not thin? Similarly, do sick people not deserve to love themselves and be happy? Because that comes through in some of your responses. That it seems that only people who match your notion and definition of health should be celebrating themselves and feeling sexy and beautiful. And how dare these obese people who might be unhealthy as a result of their obesity be doing these things? Again, I'd like to point out to you that it's not necessarily true that obesity is making people unhealthy. Sometimes people are already unhealthy because of diseases and genetic issues or mental health issues, and thus they are obese. And are you really saying that these people who are struggling possibly with mental health issues like depression and anxiety shouldn't be doing something that very explicitly helps their mental health, like celebrating themselves? So again, what is health? There are lots of different types of health. Mental health is one of them. And accepting yourself as you are, especially if you can't change it, is one of the things that the body positive movement's about. And then the last piece about fatness being immutable is that there is tons of research out there on the inefficacy of the diet industry. And the statistics are pretty strong that when people lose weight, they gain it right back again. And in the end, maybe have a difference of a couple of pounds after decades of torturing themselves and being unhappy with themselves for not being able to lose the weight or for gaining the weight right back again. And in awareness of that, the body positivity movement has arisen, being like, you know what, instead of sacrificing all of this joy and happiness in my life to reach this ideal that society's telling me I need to reach, that I don't actually really care about, and that seems to be impossible for me to reach, I'm just going to enjoy my life, and y'all could deal with it. So again, is it, what's this about? What's this desire to control fat people about? Because the thin ideal is very culturally specific, socially constructed, not a strong indicator of health. And should health be a prerequisite for having value in society or getting to feel good about yourself? And how do these other structural factors play in? So I just want to get you thinking about all those things.